Sup, everyone? It is Joey D and Timmy B, and we are back at it again for probably the most anticipated episode of the Flea Flicker to date in our off-season mojo. As we are going to be talking about the NFC East, which is your Philadelphia Eagles division, and the AFC North, my Baltimore Ravens divisions. And as you guys can see, we're wearing the same stuff. We're recording this back to back with our previous episode. Make sure you guys go check it out. But Joey D, how are you doing today, my friend?
Tim, I am still doing great. I'm
Woo!
excited to give the viewers and our fans, some insight about the Eagles and what to expect, and how this division should go. Please do not hold my prediction last year about the division against me. Couldn't have predicted everything going as poorly as it did, and culminating in one giant, dumpster fire, which the Philadelphia Eagles were last season. We're not going to be as optimistic this year. I'll tell you that in advance.
Hey, the good news is you guys can criticize our preseason prick. I cannot speak today, Joe. My
Come
goodness.
on, Tim.
I know, man. I know. A lot of tongue twisters have get me today, but you guys, the viewers, can criticize our picks officially in the next couple of days, as we will officially give our standings, records, MVP picks, Super Bowl, all that stuff, as well as predicting the Cowboys and Buccaneers game on Thursday night. But before we hop in, Joe, hit that thumbs up button to like this video and subscribe to our channel. The support is greatly appreciated. And the more likes, comments, subscribers we get, the more we know that you guys love some football and love us talking about football. Now, Joe, are you ready to talk about the NFC least as
I
last year?
am. Let's
Okay.
go. I'm ready to get into it. We're starting with the East.
Yeah, we'll start with the NFC East. Uh, this is your division, Joe. How would you like to lead the conversation?
You go first. Outside looking in, give me your perspective on the division as a whole.
Absolutely. Well, I still think that this is going to be a weak division. I think it will be better than last year, obviously. I don't think we'll be in week 13, 14, 15 being like, okay, a 6 and 10 team might win this division. So I think it will be stronger in that case. I do love the Washington football team. I do think that they will be repeating as NFC East champions. I do think it could be potentially like we see with the AFC South, where they might have the same record as the Cowboys or another team, but I think that the football team will be getting the tiebreakers and everything like that. I mean, they have the veteran quarterback that they've been looking for in Ryan Fitzmagic. They have the magic with Fitzmagic. Antonio Gibson, solid running game with the Gibson and McKissick. Obviously, McLaurin bringing in Curtis Samuel, who's very familiar with Ron Rivera, very nice. They still have Logan Thomas, decent offensive line, could use a little bit work, but still pretty good. But that defense, man, Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio, Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, like the Alabama defensive line
Oh
right
yeah.
there. Great linebacker core, decent secondary. Kendall Fuller. I mean, Landon Collins has improved a little bit since his time with the Giants and moving around, bouncing around with the Browns as well. So definitely excited about the football team. Definitely think that they can repeat. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to talk about the football team?
No. I'll jump in there.
Okay.
I think it's the pretty much the same thing like you said. I predict that the football team is going to win this division. I think that like you said, it's still going to be a relatively weak division, but better than it was last year. I think that this could be a division where each it's very close. It's I think it's still going to be a competitive division because I don't think any one team is going to run away with it.
Yeah.
I kind of see one team having 5 or 6 wins, and then another 6 or 7, another 7 or 8, and the other 9 or 10, something like that, where it's pretty close, and nobody's just garbage, except for maybe the Giants, or and nobody's really dominant. But I think that like you said, Ryan Fitzpatrick and this defense, I really think is a good match. I mean, let's not forget this team won the division last year, starting Dwayne Haskins,
Mhm.
Kyle Allen, a hobbled Alex Smith, and Taylor Heineke. So
And they almost beat
Ryan,
the Buccaneers in the wild card game with
exactly,
Heineke.
exactly, and Ryan Fitzpatrick is an upgrade over what they had at quarterback last year. So I think that gets you at least a couple more wins. And I think we've talked about how we both agree that this fit in terms of having a little bit of a risky, gunslinger quarterback, he can afford to have some of those turnovers that he does and take those chances because he has a defense that can bail him out. So I think that, this is the most balanced team in the division. And while, it might not be the best offense, I think that, they're also one of the better coached teams in the
Mhm.
division with Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio and the rest of their staff. So I think it's Washington. But I think Dallas will be second. Um, I mean, there's definitely a scenario in which, Dallas does poorly and this all implodes. I mean, we're already seeing, Dak Prescott, struggle with the injuries in the preseason. And we saw, what Dallas was like without Dak Prescott last year. I mean, on paper, these weapons on offense are scary. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to figure out how to cover all of these guys, but at the same time, I mean, this offensive line is not the offensive line it was before. Everyone, still talks about it as if it is. You know, it's been almost 5 years, I think, since their left tackle Tyron Smith has played a full season.
Mm.
Travis Frederick retired. Lyle Collins, the right tackle, is coming off a season-ending injury. Zach Martin was banged up last year and is getting a lot older. And with Zeke, he's last year was his worst year by
Yeah.
far. I mean, I think that it was clear that the decline for Ezekiel Elliott is here. And, this is a guy that's gotten more touches than any other player since he came out. I think right now, the only other active player that has more career touches than Ezekiel Elliott is Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
Mark Ingram has been in the league, I think, at least twice as long as Ezekiel Elliott. So, it's unbelievable, just how much they've, kind of used him and, invested in him to, now a very predictable, scenario where he's falling off. I mean, this guy also had, a record number of touches at Ohio State. So, the end is very near for Ezekiel Elliott. And I also don't know if this defense is really improved. I mean, we're all talking about Dan Quinn and now he's going to fix it. I mean, the Falcons had an awful defense his entire tenure as head coach. Like I think a lot of people are projecting the Cowboys to be a little bit better. But I do think, I mean, just with all those offensive weapons, if Dak Prescott is healthy, they should still, be able to win, 7, 8, 9 games. But I mean, let's also not forget that, while he was in last year and everyone was healthy, they were 1-4.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know. I don't believe in Mike McCarthy. I don't think that's a very well coached team.
Yeah, and you nailed it, Joe, too. I mean, last year they struggled a lot without Dak and the offensive line being injured. So they're only going to go as far as those two, or Dak and the offensive line will take them. I mean, Zeke is still very good. Pollard is still very good. They still have the offensive weapons with Cooper, C.D. Lamb, Michael Gallup as well. But it all comes down to that. It also comes down to the defense. And I'm looking at the depth chart right now, Joe. They have DeMarcus Lawrence, Brett Urban, Vander Esch, he has to be healthy, of course, but Keanu Neal, they drafted Micah Parsons from Penn State, arguably one of the better defensive players in the draft. Malik Hooker, Trevon Diggs, like seeing those names that are very recognizable, I'm like, this should be a good defense, but it's not. So we'll see what Dan Quinn can do. You nailed it. The Falcons defense was on the decline the past couple of seasons under Dan Quinn's helm, and they started 1-4 last year with Dak, and they were losing games 35-33, and their only win was against the Falcons in that onside kick debacle. So uh,
Right.
that's the key for the Cowboys. Can they tighten up the defense? Because when Dak is in and healthy, this is an electric offense, very high powered. They're going to score some points. But how about they win games 35-20 and not 35-33, or lose games 35-33? You got to be on the other side. So I do think the Cowboys will come in second. I think you said too, probably around that 7, 8, 9 wins. Could be in the conversation late to maybe have a tiebreaker over the football team for the division, but I don't see a wild card in their eyes. Now moving on, Joe, do you want to talk about your Eagles, or should we skip that real quick and talk about the Giants?
Well, I think that the Eagles are probably going to end up in third place this
Okay,
year.
let's talk about
Um,
your Eagles, baby. You
yeah,
go
so
ahead.
we'll go there. I mean, the Eagles have given me no reason to believe or trust in them to, be successful after last year. We got to go off of what we saw on the field. And what we saw on the field last year was a bad team that was old, it was injured, and, it was expensive. They've done a good job of, getting a lot younger. I think almost all of our draft picks made the initial 53-man roster. Um, and it's going to be a very the whole this whole season is really about finding out, is Jalen Hurts the guy and is Nick Sirianni the guy? That's what I think that this whole season is, the main thing that we got to figure out, because I mean, that's if you don't have a franchise quarterback, then you don't really have a competitive team. And, that's what we got to find out. And I think that there are pieces around Jalen Hurts to, make a fair assessment. I mean, I think that Nick Sirianni is going to do a better job of getting better play out of the wide receivers, be a little bit more multiple with offense, a little bit less predictable than Doug Peterson had gotten towards the end of his tenure. And I mean, this is a great offensive line, a great run game, potentially with Jalen Hurts running the ball, opening it up for Miles Sanders. We've still got two very good tight ends in Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. Zach Ertz very recently spoke with the media. Last year, was a rough year full of distractions for, everyone, but Zach Ertz specifically with a contract dispute. It's apparently all water under the bridge now. He wants to retire in Philadelphia and, play the rest of his career here, and, is excited to be back. So this is one of the best training camps he's had. And, he's had a very good training camp. So, I think that he's going to be a big part of this offense after, a lot of people, myself included, thought that, he was done in Philadelphia. And, it's going to be fun to see what Devontae Smith can bring to the table. I think that Devontae and Quez Watkins are going to be two of the two main wide receivers for the Eagles. And, we'll see with Jalen Reagor. I hope that, he can, step up and be a number two. He's just been very inconsistent this offseason. So, we'll have to see, if he's able to take the next step and, put it all together. Also, other news, Jordan Milada beat out Andre Dillard for the starting left tackle job, which is, fantastic for him and, just a phenomenal story. I mean, this is a guy drafted in the 7th round 3 years ago and out of playing Australian rugby in the Australian Rugby Football League, and, never played NFL or pro football, a down in his life before being drafted by the Eagles. And
he's
Jeff
just your
Stout,
casual 6'8", 380-pound
man. He's an athlete too. I mean, if you see his rugby highlights, like, this man can move. And, if he gets the ball in his hands, like, I would love for them to use him on the goal line. But now, he's your starting left tackle.
Like the guy from the longest yard, that just big guy, give him the ball and just let him go.
Yes, I think he would do so well. I mean, I think against the Ravens last year, there was like a fumble or a pick, and Milada wrecked whoever recovered it. Like, he wrecked him. Like,
And did the Eagles win that game?
We did not, but
okay.
But did the Ravens almost lose to the 4-11-1 Eagles that game? Did Travis Fulgham have his elite stretch during that? Was that game part of his elite stretch? Yes, it was. Yes, it was, Tim.
W's all that matter, baby. W is the only thing that matters.
That's right. And I guess, it was all a sham with Travis Fulgham because he's on the Eagles practice squad. I don't know what to think of him this year. But, I guess just not really expecting that much. But, I think that this defense can be sneaky good for the Eagles, especially on the D-line. Josh Sweat is primed for a breakout season. We got Ryan Kerrigan as well. Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, who's healthy after coming into last year unhealthy with that pec injury. And Milton Williams, the rookie, he's been playing D-end and D-tackle. So I think that it's going to be a very multiple defense instead of, again, a little bit of blandness, kind of like, the same type deal we had seen with Jim Shorts for, his tenure in Philadelphia. I think we're going to see a little bit more variations in the coverage and blitzes, and then, just the schematic structure of the defense. So I'm very excited for a lot of, what this team can do. I think there's a lot that, this can be taken away from this season to, learn about the future and, what direction this team is going in moving forward. But I do still think that, because of this division, I mean, we can still be competitive. I would not be shocked at all if Jalen Hurts plays above expectations. Then, I think that the rest of the team will as well. And then, who knows? We could win the division and, make some. I mean, I'm not expecting much from any team in this division, but, you know, you never know in the NFL. I would love to see it happen, but I'm definitely not gonna put all my eggs in the Eagles basket like I did last season. What are your thoughts on the Eagles from the outside looking into them?
No, I'm with you. Basically, everything you said, Joe. I have them coming in third in the division, but as we said, wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Hurts does kind of get that momentum and the rest of the team does to kind of overtake that Cowboys for second in the division. I don't know if winning the division's in the hands, but with these teams, we have no idea, Joe. I'll just say that. We have no idea
Exactly.
with these teams. Like what I'm seeing. I like the offense. Miles Sanders, Boston Scott. The key for the Eagles is health. If the Eagles can stay healthy, this is going to be a competitive team for most weeks. Jalen Hurts is going to be good. Flacco will definitely get a start or two, more than likely. And then we got Gardner Minshew in the QB room. But you said it with that defense too. Kind of like the Cowboys. I'm seeing names like Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Derek Barnett, Darius Slay, Anthony Harris. Like these are names that I'm like, yes, like these are good players, but like they got to stay healthy. It's got to be the right system as well. The schedule is a little bit tougher this year for you guys. You guys do have
Right.
the AFC West, so Patty Mahomes and Andy Reid coming to town, or you're going there. I don't know which one is which. Guys got the NFC South as well, I believe. Just looking at your schedule, so Panthers. We just talked about that. Well, we talked about them days ago to you guys, the viewers, but we talked to them like 20 minutes ago. Joe, Buccaneers coming into town. But I will say the way that the schedule has worked out, especially still that there might be some COVID protocols and everything like that, they've really made the last 5, 6 weeks all divisions. So I'm seeing, for the Eagles, Giants, Jets, football team, Giants, football team, Cowboys. If they can kind of float around, I don't see why they couldn't make a little run at the end of the season. Likewise for any of the teams,
Exactly.
with their divisions. Like I'm seeing the football team, their schedule is tough because they came in first place last year, so a little bit tougher for them. But their last couple of weeks are, Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Eagles. So it's like they could get hot at the right moment as well. But I'm liking what I'm seeing now, Joe. I do have a question for you, and we'll get more into this when we give an official record prediction. And you said, "Hey, if we get the momentum, maybe we could go to the playoffs." But and I feel like this is a season of answers. So let's say you guys only get 4 or 5 wins, but Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni show that they are the future. Do you still consider that a success, or do you need to see that success in wins as well?
It's just so hard to give an answer to that because you know, why if we get 4 wins, why did we lose all these other games? Was it
Right.
just like were we unlucky? Was it injuries? Was it the defense? Was it, the receivers not being, as impactful? It's there's so much that goes into it, and we've talked about this with Jalen Hurts, he's gonna have to be nothing less than convincing
Yeah.
for the Eagles to not move on from him because they have these three first round or two first round draft picks and two second round draft picks. They have ammo to move up in the draft, go get a veteran quarterback, and they can, if this rebuild, if this roster is, average with Jalen Hurts, I don't think they're gonna be satisfied with that. I think that they're gonna feel like they can upgrade. So I think that he's really gonna have to overachieve, and really just prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is better than any alternative option out there. And if you keep surrounding him with talent, then he can lead you to success in the postseason. So to answer your question, I think if it's a 4-win season, then to me that means that Jalen did not do well, or Nick Sirianni didn't do well, or the rest of the team just fell apart. And then it's like, then how are you able to get a fair assessment of Jalen Hurts? But I don't think that they're going to be able to take that risk and give him another year, and not go all in on Spencer Rattler or Aaron Rodgers or whoever it is. Um, so yeah, I think that he's going to have to really overachieve in order to cement his spot. But he's a guy that has overcome a lot of odds in his life. Great guy to root for, and he's saying and doing all the right things on and off the field. I think that you know it's if he's not successful, it's definitely not going to be for lack of trying. This guy's going to give it his all. I think he's a really good fit for Philadelphia, and he's got the tough skin and the right mentality for a quarterback in Philadelphia. I just really hope he's got the NFL arm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you nailed it as well. This is definitely a make or break year for the Eagles. Either it's really good news and you guys do very well. Jalen Hurts shows that he is the guy, and you spend all this nice draft capital that you have on getting him weapons, or maybe, fixing up the defense, or on the, bad side of, or on the glass half empty side of things, it's a really bad season, and you take all this draft capital to clean house, rebuild again, build around some of these young guys like Devonta Smith and even a Jalen Rager. So it definitely is a make or break season for the Eagles, especially with what's coming with all this draft capital and everything that you guys have. So definitely excited to see what happens, Joe, and I'm very excited to see your reactions as we talk about games that happen throughout the week after they
I'm
happen
sure.
on Sunday and Monday. And well, now it's time for the New York Football Giants. Joe Judge is still the coach there. They have Saquon, and that's about it.
Well, they've got some receivers. I mean, they signed Kenny Galladay, they drafted Kadarius Toney, they still have Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton there, and Evan Ingram. So they've got some guys on the outside, but this offensive line is still a major issue. I mean, they let Kevin Zeitler go. I think the Ravens got him,
Yeah, baby.
and he was their best offensive lineman last year. I mean, they took Andrew Thomas first out of all of the rookie left tackles, and he looks like the worst one. And it's yeah, I mean, it's a make or break year for Daniel Jones as well, with the Giants acquiring that additional first round pick to move back in the draft after the Eagles sniped Devontae Smith from them. And I just don't understand the Giants' mentality. I mean, like, this is a team that needs offensive line help or defensive line help. I mean, they did not need more wide receivers for Daniel Jones. I mean, now Tony is also a guy that is kind of a gadget player. You got to
Yeah,
manufacture touches for him. So, that's touches that are being taken away from Saquon Barkley. You got Kenny Galladay, who's a great deep ball wide receiver, and that's something Daniel Jones is good at. But I don't see this. The formula for success for the Giants, to me, relies on Saquon Barkley having, a MVP caliber season.
yeah,
And, without this offensive line being, even average, I don't see that as a possibility. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, there are not a ton of names that really stand out, but that's what we said last year. And I think Patrick Graham, their D coordinator, he did a phenomenal
yeah. They
job
had a
getting
really good
a,
defense.
they had a really surprisingly good defense for what that roster, was on paper. So I mean, I think that that's definitely something to be, optimistic about. But again, there's just not a ton of talent there. So I don't know how good it can really be. And I think that this is the year that the Giants decide, this is it for Daniel Jones. I can see this, kind of spiraling a little bit as well. I mean, Joe Judge is a little bit of a controversial type of head coach in terms of, the way that he runs his team. I mean, he's got these guys running sprints after practice. I mean, these are not high schoolers, these are NFL players. I mean, he's had a bunch of players retire because they don't like his coaching style. So if this team is doing that again, I can see, that turmoil, start to spiral a little bit. And I mean, the Eagles do a very good job against the Giants traditionally over the last couple years. So, I think that the Eagles will beat the Giants each time they play. Um, and I just don't see the Giants finishing better. I think at best they could be third. Maybe the Eagles are a little better than people expect. Maybe the Cowboys are worse. I I don't know. I just don't see the Giants being more than fourth place in this division. Um, I mean, they might be the worst team in the NFC. It might be them or the Lions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the Ravens actually traded guard Ben Breitson to the Giants right before the cut. We were going to cut him, and I saw a Giants fan, or I think it was one of the Barstool guys who likes the Giants, being like, Well, he played at Michigan and for the Ravens, so he's probably our best offensive lineman right now. But I'm also looking at their depth chart right now, and it's a bunch of injuries. I mean, the only healthy people that aren't questionable are Sterling Shepard, Dante Pettis, and the backup running backs. I mean, Barkley is questionable, Galladay is questionable, Tony is questionable, C.J. Bird, Darius Slayton, Evan Ingram, Kyle Rudolph. Like that's all their skill positions are basically questionable. Now that'll obviously change as we approach week one and season beyond. But it's a lot of injuries. It's a very young offensive line with Andrew Thomas. Not sure if that was the best tackle to take in the draft. Will Hernandez doing a decent job at guard, but yeah, this is a rough offensive line. And like you said, they're going to need their skill position players to step up. And Daniel Jones needs to say, hey, like, I am who I say I am. I am the quarterback that you drafted me to be. I know I didn't do that well at Duke, but hey, I can win in the NFL. And then, like you said, with the defense, very surprising defense. Can they do it again? Can they be that consistent? So yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to say that they're going to be one of the worst teams along with the Lions in the NFC, but this is definitely maybe at best, like everything goes correctly their way, like a 6 or 7 win type of team.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm right there with you.
All right, Joe. Well, that's it for the NFC East. Now it's time for the AFC North. Definitely two of the more elite teams in the AFC, like we said. Obviously, to compete with the Kansas City Chiefs, it seems like it's the Bills, Ravens, Titans, and Browns, and obviously the Ravens and Browns are both in their division. So, from an outsider's perspective, what are we seeing here at the top of the AFC North with the Ravens and Browns? What are you seeing, and then we'll continue the conversation from there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hype around the Browns right now. I mean, after what they did last year with Kevin Stefanski in his first year, and I mean without Odell Beckham. So I mean, I think that offense should be just as good, if not even better than it was last year, with Odell back, and with that team, just getting more comfortable with themselves and the system, and continuing to develop their identity and grow stronger. I mean, Baker Mayfield had a really good year last year. Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, that run game. But I mean, that offensive line is also one of the best in football.
Mhm.
So it's going to be a very good offense. And then they almost completely remade their defense as well this offseason, adding Jadeveon Clowney,
Yeah.
Anthony Walker from the Colts,
Oh yeah.
John Johnson from the Rams. Drafting uh, Joker Jeremiah Owosu in the second round out of Notre Dame. They've added a lot of talent to that defense, and really trying to get it back to you know at least above average to complement that offense. And I mean that should all really help out Miles Garrett, who has been just lights out since being
Yeah.
the number one pick. So I mean right now it looks like, things are, you know, going favorably for the Browns. And while I think that the Ravens are still the more veteran team, and, the ones that I definitely trust more to, continue to be as good as they have been, the J.K. Dobbins injury that we discussed in the last episode, and, Rashad Bateman, Sammy Watkins, I just don't know if this offense is going to be able to, continue to be successful week in and week out if they're putting it all on Lamar Jackson every week. I still expect the defense to be good. I still expect this to be one of the best teams in the AFC, and to, at the very least, make a wild card division. I think it will be a two-team race for that division with the Browns and the Ravens. But right now, I think I'm leaning more towards Cleveland.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Cleveland is a very stacked roster, and the hype is real, especially after the season that they had last year, making the playoffs for the first time in basically forever. And the hype was there 2 years ago with Freddie Kitchens, and then we all know what happened. So at least they got over that hype hump of saying, all right, well, we have like a bunch of all stars, like we should be good. Now that they actually proved that they can win some games, absolutely. Definitely a little bit of a lighter schedule for them versus the Ravens. Obviously, somehow the divisions worked out, and we play each other 2 times in 3 weeks, and the Browns have their bye week sandwich between them. I don't have our schedule up. I don't have it memorized either, but we definitely do not have our bye squeezed in between them. But 2 times in 3 weeks, But again, this is going to be a make or break final stretch for the Browns to see if they can do it because they have us by us Raiders, Packers, Steelers. So like that could be an interesting mix of games right there. That's definitely going to make or break their season. And you nailed it, Joe. I mean, they brought in Jadeveon Clowney. They brought in Anthony Walker. Excuse me, John Johnson the third. What a name, John Johnson. Can you imagine? And he's
I
the
know,
third.
right?
He's the third. So it's definitely going to be an electric defense. And we'll see about Clowney. Clowney has, fallen off a little bit the last couple of years. But we'll see. He's still Jadeveon Clowney, still a threat for sure. Offensive
And
line is going to be
he's not going to be getting doubled. I mean, it's Miles Garrett on the opposite side. I mean,
yeah,
you gotta take both those guys into account and some pretty good interior D linemen as well. So I mean, we could see a little bit more Jadeveon Clowney like season, because he's getting less attention. But also like you said, we haven't seen him really do that since he's been in
right.
the NFL. So I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. It's definitely a two-team race for the division. We'll see. I mean, it could. I mean, either way, I feel pretty confident in saying whoever does not win the division will be the number 5 seed and that first wild card spot in the AFC. Likely going on the road to the AFC South, much like it was last year. So yeah, Browns are going to be a scary team. I'm definitely not excited to be playing them 2 times in 3 weeks, especially how the games went last year. But now, Joe, it's time to talk about that other team in the two-team race. My Baltimore Ravens, and you said it. I'll give you the outsider's perspective first. We mentioned the J.K. Dobbins injury, as well as Lamar's offense. But any more thoughts about the Ravens and how not only the offense but also the defense as well?
Yeah, I mean, the defense I think should still be pretty good. You brought in Justin Houston to replace Matthew Judon. But I still don't know, if that pass rush is going to be enough on the edge. Calais Campbell's still a force on the interior. Patrick Queen, taking that next step at middle linebacker. And I already mentioned, how stacked you guys are at DB. So I
Right.
still think it'll be a great defense. And I think that Baltimore is still on offense, just going to be kind of now because of the injuries forced back into that, same offense we've kind of seen out of them the past couple of years where, it's just all on Lamar running the ball, simply because, these injuries, are taking away the weapons that, they've tried to put around him. I mean, J.K. Dobbins is, a huge asset in the run game, but also in the receiving game. And, if Rashad Bateman and Sammy Watkins can't get healthy, we're talking about the same wide receivers
Yeah.
last year that, we're all, you know, praying that the Ravens can, do something to upgrade. So it's not for lack of trying that, they're trying to add some threats and, help for Lamar, but, these injuries are rough. I mean, what is the latest with both Bateman and Sammy Watkins?
Yeah, Bateman's probably going to be a little bit of time. I can click on his name to give you the exact update, but he'll still be a couple of weeks to go. I think at the time of his injury and at the time of his surgery, we basically said it might even be the first month. So it could be the first entire month for him. But thinking on the flip side of that, Joe, might take him a couple of weeks to get acclimated back in week 5, 6, 7. But for that second half, for that push, I think that's going to be a key for Rashad Bateman. Whenever he does come back, sure, it might be a couple of weeks for him to get adjusted, but that's a nice threat to get basically halfway through the season. Should he pan out to be what we
Yeah.
projected? But that's the latest update. And we knew that as well. We knew it would take a little bit of time. Sammy Watkins seems to be all good to go. At least he should be fully practicing in the next couple of days. Or again, we're recording this back to back with our NFC South and AFC South episode, so he might be fully practicing right now, but he should be all good to go. And yeah, I think the passing game is the big question. I mean, there's no doubt Lamar's, like we said, Lamar's going to run 800, 900, maybe 1,000 yards. Gus Edwards now being the running back one, he'll probably be in that ballpark as well. We'll see about Justin Hill and Tyson Williams as the backups now with Dobbins out. So it all comes down to the passing game, and we drafted Bateman. We brought in Sammy Watkins. Marquise Brown needs to step it up a little bit. One guy to be on the lookout for is James Prochet. We drafted
Right.
him a couple of years ago, and he led FBS. He led all of college football in receptions, and he was basically catching everything in practice in the preseason as well. So expect him to get it. And you said it with the defense, Joe. We got to get to the quarterback. That's been our issue in Wink Martindale's system. We got to get sacks. We got to get sacks. We got to get sacks. So I'm expecting a big year out of a big second year from Patrick Queen as well as Malik Harrison, who is now a starting linebacker with Justin Houston in the mix. We have the best secondary in the NFL. I mean, Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey. We got to be healthy now. Jimmy Smith being a little banged up as well. Tavion Young, one of the more electric nickel backs, but he's always seemed to be injured as well. But we have the best secondary in the NFL. We have one of the more elite defenses. So on that, I'm not too worried about. Especially right now, but it all comes down to the offense. Good news is Ronnie Stanley in the final preseason game in that one series that he did play against the football team looked like he did not miss a beat at all, which is nice when a 350-pound man tears his ACL or his Achilles or whatever, that he can still perform at a high level. So definitely excited for that. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough grind. I can see it being like last year as well. I mean, hell, Joe, we had a bunch, as we all know, we had a bunch of COVID issues, definitely around that Thanksgiving,
Right.
early December, but we still managed to get 10, 11 wins. We still managed to make the playoffs. And with our coaching staff, with Harbaugh and the gang, like, I know, like, we would need a bunch of injuries to happen for us to only get 5, 6, 7 wins, even 8 or 9. So we're still probably going to get double digits, especially with the 17th game. And it's going to come down to those Cleveland games. Can we get that tiebreaker over them? Can we beat them to not overtake the division, but to win the division? I'll say that instead, and having a home playoff game or two versus going on the road to Tennessee or wherever again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like we said, I think it's going to be a two team race in that division, and it could go either way. Like you said, those games against Cleveland are going to be key. Because I mean, the Ravens have done well against the Browns the past couple of years, even with the Browns. I mean, didn't you
Well,
guys split with them last
we've
year?
always done well against the Browns.
Right. Did you guys split with them last year?
No, no. Last year we swept them. We played them in week 1 and won
Okay.
38-6.
I thought I remembered that game. I didn't know about the second game. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you guys swept the Browns last year in a year that they were the best they've been in recent memory.
Mhm.
So who's to say that can't happen again? And you guys end up winning the division.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm definitely excited for that. And now third place. I mean, I think this is going to be a down year for them. The defending AFC North champions, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have them coming in third, and we'll get to the Bengals in a second, Joe. I don't think they're just there yet, and hopefully they do prove me wrong, and the Steelers do come in last place. But Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger, probably this guy just keeps playing, and he probably should retire. But you drafted Najee Harris, the best running back in the draft, an Alabama product. So definitely probably going to be in Pittsburgh for quite some time to deal with Najee Harris. They still have Deontay Johnson, Juju, Claypool, Ebron. They got Derek Watt. They got TJ Watt on the defense, probably Defensive Player of the Year. Definitely a finalist and candidate for sure. But even last year, Joe, I kept saying, I'm like, this team is not a good undefeated team, but they just keep winning the games.
Yeah, I mean, it's a well coached team by Mike
Mhm.
Tomlin. They've got, I still think they'll have a great defense this year. I'm not sold on that offense. I mean,
No.
Ben Roethlisberger last year, he looked cooked. Like his arm looked like it was ready to give out. And I mean, I don't know if it's any better this year. I'm hearing like, oh, it feels great. Just like it did in the old days, whatever. Like, but on top of that, this is a completely new offensive line. I believe it's 5 new starters along the offensive line, and it does not look great on paper, you
Yeah.
know? So I mean, you're not gonna have I don't think they're gonna have very good protection. I don't think they're gonna have great blocking, so I don't know how much Najee Harris is gonna be able to do with not a great offensive line and bless you, Brooke, and also not a great not great passing game. I think their receivers are okay, but if Ben Roethlisberger can't stretch the field or force the defense to respect the deep ball, and the offensive line isn't playing great, I just don't see how Najee Harris, a running back, is a difference maker at this point. I still think he's good, but I've talked about my philosophy on running backs in the first round. I think that if for a team that's trying to go all in right now and without the window is rapidly closing for Pittsburgh, and I think that this could be their first losing season. under Mike Tomlin. But that's the Najee Harris pick makes sense in terms of they're still trying. They still think they're trying to win right now. I just don't see that as where they are anymore, and just don't think that overall it's a smart move to go for a running back unless you're good at literally every other position.
No, you're right. The offensive line is basically brand new. They did bring in Trey Turner, but their defense is elite, much like the Ravens. This is one of the best defenses in the NFL, as I was saying. I mean, Devin Bush, Joe Sherbert. They brought in Melvin Ingram. You still have Minka Fitzpatrick back there. Joe Hayden. He's going to be testing the free agency waters. It seems like after this
Yeah,
season. But T.J. Watt, definitely, like I said, he'll be right there with Aaron Donald for Defensive Player of the Year, assuming, of course, all the health to him. But yeah, you nailed it, Joe. And I think this, like a couple years ago when Roethlisberger was injured and it was Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, this team was still an 8-8 team. Mike Tomlin, great coaching staff. I mean, last year, like we were saying with the Patriots, still went 8-8 with Cam Newton and all those industries. Bill Belichick. I said industries again, Joe. Damn it, but Bill Belichick still made that team go 8-8. But I think this could be the first losing season, and it won't be bad. It's not like they're going to go 6-11 or only have
right.
5 wins. In a 17-game season, they might go 8-9 or 7-10. This is like they're still going to be lingering around 500, but I think they'll be on the bottom side of 500. And schedule as well, Joe. I mean, a decent schedule. We play the NFC North, so a couple of tough teams with the Packers, and we also play the AFC West as well as with you guys. So we do have that whole gang as well. But their final couple of weeks, Ravens at the Vikings on a Thursday night, so a short week against a Minnesota team that is capable of winning. Then they have
Primetime Kirk Cousins. I don't know.
well, hey, Thursday night Kirk Cousins. So who knows
Uh,
the Thursday night?
who knows?
But then after that, it's Titans, Chiefs, Browns, Ravens. So like, that is a
Right.
brutal December. I'll say that for the Steelers. So we'll see with them. And then Joe, the Bengals, last team we are talking about in our off season mode, our off season outlook. Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow seems full systems go. So amazing, speedy recovery. God bless him for doing that. I really like this team year 2 of Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor together. They have a very young wide receiver core. They drafted Jamar Chase. Our friend Derek, he really preferred Panay Sewell, but still a decent offensive line. Not the best, but still a decent offensive line. They definitely have all the weapons they need with Mixon, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. They even have Samaje Perine, a solid second back. So my big thing is I think the offense could put up points, and they definitely will, but it's all going to come down to that defense for me in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it there. It's all about that defense. They've got one really, really good player in Jesse Bates at
Mhm.
safety, who I think doesn't get nearly as much love as he should because
Also
he's
a
on.
third, he is Jesse Bates the third.
Very nice. But they also added Trey Hendrickson from the Saints. I can't remember what else they did in the offseason. I feel like they added a couple more pieces to the defense, but my biggest question is Zach Taylor, a legit coach or not? I mean, he's had
Yeah,
what this is his third year now. Is that right,
I
or is this the second year?
I believe I definitely third year. I think.
I think it's his third year as well. And I mean, he's had two very poor seasons so far. Finishing in the bottom five of the entire league. So he really got to kind of get that together and figure out like we've got to figure out, is Zach Taylor a legit NFL head coach or not? Because if he's not, then you can't waste Joe Burrow and this offensive talent any longer. So I think that if he takes the steps that he can, or that they hope that he can,
Mhm.
then maybe this team surprises us. I could definitely see them overachieving and doing better than the Steelers and finishing third, especially if the Steelers have as down a year as we
Right.
think they do. I think that's also like best case scenario for the Bengals and worst case scenario for the Steelers. And I think that, that best case scenario for the Bengals is that offense is legit and, puts up points, but that defense just isn't good enough. And, they're still, a year or two out. I think that's the best case scenario for them. Third place finish and, some hope for the future if they, can show an explosive offense with, these pieces that they put around Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and they can still have a very successful season and have a bright future as well. I think they're going to be around 5, 6, 7 wins. In best case scenario, I think I'm with you right around that below 500, like those 7, 8, 9 wins. One thing you do have to consider is you do play the Ravens twice, the Browns twice, and the Steelers twice. So it's kind of like, sure, we might be able to pick up some wins here and there, but it's like, how are we going to go 3-3 in the division, or 4-2, 5-1, 6-0? It's like, well, we play uh, probably one of the two best defenses in the NFL 4 times. The Browns have a good defense right there, so that's going to be the key for the Bengals is how do they do in the division, and they're going to be a decent team. They're going to be fun to watch for sure, but when you're the fourth out of 4 teams in the division, it's not looking too bright. Now, as you said, Joe, I wouldn't be surprised if they did get some momentum early and maybe surprise a couple of people. I mean, their first 4 games are Vikings, Bears, Steelers, Jaguars. So I definitely wouldn't be surprised if they had a good game against the Vikings and the Bears. They have some momentum going into Pittsburgh. Maybe beat them. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if this team had a good start. But more likely, I think I'm going to go a little conservative here and only say 5, 6, 7 wins. I'm still going to be very interested to see what this offense does and
Right.
everything like that. But I'm saying probably around 5, 6, 7 wins. And like you said, best case scenario, with the Steelers maybe falling off a little bit more than expected, maybe 7, 8, 9 wins, and you're like, all right, cool, like we're a little bit closer than we think.
Right. Exactly. So, young team, with some promise for the future. We'll see. That's always a fun storyline to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, I am excited. That Joe, that wraps up our off-season outlook. We talked about divisions, we talked about players. Some were a little bit more in depth as there was some more news, but we got the 53-man roster. We got a game on Thursday night. So, Joe, your homework. I got some homework for you. You got to pick official records. We got to talk MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. So it's going to be a lot of fun as we look ahead to that, as well as talking about the Cowboys and Buccaneers. But any final words on our two respective divisions today?
Two of the more competitive divisions in the NFL, but
Yes.
for different reasons, I'd
Yeah.
say. So,
Yes.
I love that dichotomy right there. So that's always fun because both these divisions are competitive, and you just never know how it's going to go. So it's fun for us to make our predictions, and then like me last year, look like a complete idiot, like I don't know what I'm talking about. So you
Hey,
know
you know what? Jags 1-15 was probably the only thing I got right. So you
there you
know
go.
what? And the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That was probably
And
I
and
predicted
we
the
did
Ravens. Yeah.
and we did a pretty good job with our game picks last year as well. Like, I think I ended up edging you out.
By
But we
one
did it.
game. You beat me by one game, I think.
Yep, yep.
Oh,
Um,
official Ravens news. We placed Rashad Bateman and Miles Boykin on IR. Since they made the 53, that's like more of like the pup. They are eligible to return now, and
is
we
that
re-signed.
the short term IR?
I think it's the IR, but like designated to return. I think
Okay,
that's like, and then we re-signed a tight end, Eric Tomlinson, who had a pretty good
nice.
preseason as well. So yeah, breaking news here about the Ravens that we talked about. So there's your Rashad Bateman update. So it looks like he'll be out the first 4, 5, 6 weeks. I don't know exactly what the number is.
There we go. We broke some news. A couple days before the episode comes out, so the listeners will get to hear some news that they've hopefully already heard. But if not, we got you covered here at the Flea Flicker.
Hey, we got you covered here at the Flea Flicker. And friendly reminder, if you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Now, Joe, any final words?
Hey, I can't wait to have some people on this year and just talk some football. I can't believe we're so close, man. And let's just get into it, baby. Let's keep it pushing.
And it feels good that we're done talking about division outlooks and I can actually be like, cool, like this team is going to beat this team this week because of this reason. So
Yeah,
I'm excited to
exactly.
be talking about that. But I'm all good on my end. That's Joey D right there. This is Timmy B. Have a great day, guys. We'll see you soon.
Peace.